Okay, so if you haven't already done this problem, I need you to pause the video and do it now. But I'll go ahead and work it out for you to check your answer. The average of 3 tests is 67, so I can just go ahead and assume he made a 67 on each one of those. What does he need to get on his next test in order for his average? Remember, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, so we divide by 4 to be a 70. So I can go ahead and add my like terms right there, 67 plus 67 plus 67, which is the same thing as 67 times 3. I get 201 plus x equals 70, divided by 4 equals 70. We're going to multiply by 4 on both sides. Get 201 plus x, 70 times 4 is 280. Subtract 201 from both sides, resulting in a 79. So if he gets a 79 on the next test, that will increase his average from a 67 to a 70. So hopefully you all got that right. Moving on to the next part of our notes, that is something called a box and whisker plot. You may have seen these before. All a box and whisker plot is a graph of the 5-number summary. Remember, the 5-number summary graphs the minimum, Q1, median, Q3, maximum. That is what the 5-number summary is. And that's what all of these little bars are on here. You have your minimum, your quartile 1, your median, your quartile 3, and your maximum. Okay? From here to here represents the range, the difference from the minimum to the maximum. And from here to here, that represents the IQR, that rectangle. That's from Q3 to Q1. One thing that is important is make sure you scale your x-axis. So when you make a box and whisker plot, you're going to graph, there's no axis on this one, but you're going to graph an x-axis. And what I mean by scale it is if each one of these tick marks needs to be the same distance apart. So if you start at 5, choose to go by, let's say, 2's, then if this is 5, this is 7, and this is 9, and this is 11, and this is 13. Now, your minimum might be at 6, which is not one of the numbers on here, but it would be right in between these two numbers. Okay, but you can't put like the 5 here and then the 6 here because you wanted a 6 and then go to 10. You have to keep the scale the same. So if you go 5 to 6, then you're going by 1s. So that would be 7, 8, 9. This is going by 2s, and you continue going by the same. All right, so the way you do this is you draw a rectangle from Q1 to Q3 with a vertical divider at the median. So here's my rectangle from Q1 to Q3 with a vertical divider at the median. Then you draw a whisker from each end of the box to the minimum and to the maximum. So whisker to the minimum, whisker to the maximum. Each section of the graph represents 25% of the data. So what that means is this little piece here represents 25% of the data, this little piece of the rectangle here, this little piece of the rectangle here, and this little piece of the rectangle here. Each one of these, that's why these are called quarters, because you're breaking it into quarters, represents 25%. So together, all of that has 100%. All right, so here's an example of make a box and whisker plot for the data. First thing we're going to do is enter all this data into our calculator. So you need to go to Stat, Edit, put your cursor on top of L1, and press Clear, Enter to get those data values out. And then go ahead and pause the video and enter these numbers into your calculator. Okay, so double check that you have all your numbers in there correctly, and then what we basically need is the 5-number summary. So we're going to go to Stat, Calc 1, Enter. Scroll down, and there's your 5-number summary. So I need to plot values at 5, 12, 19, 32, and 50. But remember, your x-axis must be scaled. So if I'm going to start at 5, and I need to get all the way to 50, You just need to think to yourself, what do you want to go by? You probably don't want to go by ones because that's going to take you a while to get there. You could go by fives, 10, 15, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. You could have started at 0 and gone by tens. There's all different kinds of ways you could do it, as long as whatever you go by, you continue to go by throughout the whole graph. Now, all you need to do is draw a rectangle up above the axis from 12 to 32, your quartile. So 12 would be about here. I'm just estimating. 32 would be about here. So there's my interquartile, Q1 to Q3. Put a vertical bar at your median, 19, which is just short of the 20. And then whisker to your minimum at 5 and whisper to your maximum at 50. You don't have to label it above it like this, just doing that as a visual for you to see how to do the problem. And that's how you do a box and whisker plot.